going to dive into the actual work of Digital Flagship. The framework for Digital Flagship includes 3 core areas of focus, and those are student technology, coding, and enterprise app development. So I'm going to hand it over to Corey, who will talk through what that looks like.
Great. Thanks, Leif. So the first one we're going to talk about is the student technology. This was a lot of the press picked up on this immediately. This involves deploying iPad Pros to all of our first-year students starting in the fall of 18. So in August of 18, we'll start rolling those out. What it entails is an iPad Pro, 256 gigabyte Wi-Fi only iPad Pro. It comes with Apple Care Plus, which is great on the support side and the damage side. The smart keyboard and case, which is super important as an input device, as well as the pencil, which is incredibly important for note-taking, and apps. That's what we're working through now. Is what are those apps going to be? We know we support things like Microsoft Office and Box. Those obviously will be in there, but there are also some pay apps that we could explore that could be really great for students in various ways. Again, if you haven't read, this is at no additional cost to our students. No fees, no tuition increase for this. This is all through efficiencies. So it is a huge cost savings and value add to our students in general. This is also every campus. So not just Columbus campus, this is all regionals as well. So our scope is about 11,000 devices per year over the next few years. Again, rolling up from freshmen. Why? Why are we doing this? Well, what we've seen with all the work that Leif has talked about is that we have great technology available to our students. It's how do we take it to the next level? We know our students are coming with phones, laptops, different things. We have an incredible LMS in Carmen. How do we leverage that a little bit more broadly? And one way we could do that is a consistent delivery format, meaning all the students have the same thing. So I teach a class as well. I teach Music 3350, which is a British invasion course, and we can talk about that another time. It's a lot of fun. One thing I notice even in my own class is everybody's got something different. And when you're a faculty member or a teacher, that creates some barriers. So we're hoping to remove some of those barriers. We do a lot of traditional assessment that's not a lot of fun, meaning, multiple choice questions as far as a form of assessment. If you know everybody has an iPad, you know everybody has an HD camera. You know everybody has an input device like a pencil to do something creative with. So you could unlock sort of the assessment world and know that you could do something creative. Say, hey, show me your knowledge rather than just tell me through this multiple choice question. So that's really, really important from the teaching standpoint. We're also really concerned about these students holistically, the whole student. So this won't just be technology, here's an iPad. Really, the iPad's the delivery tool. We are going to look at how do we educate students about wellness and literacies. Digital, information, and financial literacies are vitally important. Included in digital literacies is something that I know Helen's excited about. We can really look at how we educate students on security and privacy better in this new world. The other thing that's really vitally important here, and this is something I learned the hard way, and maybe you did too, is work-life balance. So when we talk about wellness and mental and physical wellness, we know these students are entering a workforce that is completely mobile and you're constantly connected. That can be extremely stressful. I had a very passionate and driven boss for a while in my previous job, and I would get calls at various hours, morning and night, and the expectation is I would be on those calls. That is tricky. There is no 5 o'clock anymore. So we need to better prepare our students for this reality as they go forward and teach them strategies to help balance their life. So that's really, really important to us. Other things in here, creativity, collaboration, we know this tool can unlock a lot of those. And working with faculty on what that means is going to be of vital importance moving forward. The next pillar is coding. And this is something really exciting and something we believe in. Coding is the framework that drives everything we do with technology. Technology is in every part of our world, so it's that language is the foundation to everything that we do in a lot of ways. Getting students access to that coding curriculum of some type, and we are going to be looking at Apple's Swift coding language, is really key. Because coding is not just, creating an app. It is that. But there's also foundational skills around sort of study skills and life skills that are in coding. If you learn that language, you're learning that it's about time management. It's learning about projects. It's learning about attention to detail, because those are all things that are inherent when you're in a coding project. So what we're going to do here is we are going to provide entry-level coding curriculum to all students, access. And we are going to work through what the details of that access are. But if you haven't played with it already, if you're an iPad user, Apple has created this amazing app called Swift Playgrounds. It was initially sort of targeting kind of upper elementary, middle school, early high school students. It is a coding app that allows you to learn the foundational knowledge of coding through making this little sort of monster go through various sort of things. You collect points and do all this stuff, but what you're actually doing is sort of keystroke coding. You're learning the syntax of Swift. You're learning it right there. And once you get into the upper levels, you can actually export your code and run it in emulators. So you are coding. Even though it's very playful and very gamified, you're learning those foundational skills. So that's one of our first steps of getting that into the hands. But then the next step, and this is something that's going to be a lot of fun, is developing some sort of coding curriculum for those students that see that first bite of coding, and then want to go farther and maybe get certificates or maybe want to develop their own apps. Create some form of a course sequence to allow students to do that. And some of the great ideas there are too is not just about coding, but could we teach a course on startup culture and how to run a startup company? Because that's where a lot of these technology ideas lead to, are sort of independent startups. So thinking again, workforce development, this is a huge, huge thing for us. And then why coding? Again, I sort of touched on a lot of these, but it is a language. It provides all this framework to how to do work and how to get projects done. And then one of the huge drivers of this, and you'll hear it over and over with this, it's workforce development. We are trying to provide skills to our students in the form, again, of work-life balance and life skills and wellness skills, but also a technical skill like coding for those that want to. Now, I don't think all 60,000 of our students, undergraduate, are going to walk away and work with Steve Lieb at Apple from now on, developing stuff for them. No, that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is the foundational knowledge of what coding is, and then to create pathways for our students that do want to go that direction. This is really crazy. This is so awesome. I'm super excited about this one. Enterprise app development. So this is the third major pillar of this. Right here is going to be super cool. The first point you'll see there is a design lab. Apple has 3 design labs globally. None of them are in North America. The first design lab in the world, or in the United States and in North America for Apple, will be here in Columbus, Ohio. That is huge. And what these design labs will do will allow anybody from the Ohio community broadly and the Ohio State community that when they are working on an app, so say you've taken some of this Swift coding language and you've got this great idea, it gives you a physical place to go to before you go to market. Because a lot of times when somebody has a great idea and they're trying to do it themselves, they're going to run into glitches. They're going to run into graphic design issues, user experience, or just general technical glitches. This will be a physical space where they can take their code, their laptops with them, and sit down with somebody and have an expert talk through what they're missing and provide them a pathway forward. Columbus is really hot right now in the tech culture, in sort of the tech sector. A lot of booming things happening here in Columbus with Cover My Meds being sold recently and all of that sort of startup capital being influxed in here. This is huge for the community and a way to create new talent and connect the OSU community to that new bridging sort of startup community that's happening here. So that's super exciting. The other piece here is that Apple does some enterprise app development for very strategic partners. There are 5 of those partners currently, including people like Boeing and IBM and some others. We will be the first education partner to enter into that enterprise world. And what that means is once we identify areas of need within our ecosystem, within the Ohio State community, say there's how do we teach all these students how to use these iPads academically and professionally? Say we need a resource for that. Well, we could work with Apple and do sort of an agile sprint with their team over a week in Cupertino, gather our experts, take them there, do this sprint development. You leave the end of the week with a wireframe framework of what your thing is going to be. And then over the next 4 to 6 months, we partner with them and their experts there on building that app. That is huge. So I see Ben's in here, and I'm thinking, just from Ben Hancock's standpoint, we now have access to the best developers in the world that work for Apple. That's huge just by itself, but also to have this value add of creating these apps to meet our needs, huge, just massive. So really, really, really excited about this. Again, workforce development. And this one actually hits the greater sort of Ohio good. Because yes, it's about our Ohio State community, but this design lab's for everyone. So going in there, we need to work through that and figure out where the physical space is going to be. But that's something that's coming really, really quickly. And another to touch our community that's around us. So here's a little bit of a timeline, really high-level focus areas about the student tech side. So around the iPad deployment. Again, we're going to start rolling out at orientation timeframe for this year for Columbus students, looking at fall of next year for the big rollout. That first year is all about the students. How do we get them acclimated to this new ecosystem? How do we educate them on how to use it, again, in an academic and professional way, just focusing on what their needs are and trying to enhance that. This is the first time we've done this. This is the largest scaled higher education deployment of technology ever, period. We're going to need to learn along that way. We need to be really in touch with our students to understand how we're going to get better. So this year is really focused on the students. But we also need to work with our faculty. One thing we're going to work with our faculty is how to use Carmen at a higher level. We just did a massive transition. Travis's team did an amazing job last year going from our old product, Canvas, as the power engine for Carmen. We've got everybody over. Now, how do we take them to the next step? How do we get greater usage of Canvas across the board? Because I can tell you right now, very transparent and very clearly, one thing we hear from freshmen, you're in 5 classes and three of your professors are using Canvas. The other 2 aren't. That's a very disjointed user experience. So just getting that percentage up is going to create efficiencies and effectiveness across for our students, because Canvas has some really great mobile tools. For example, if all of the professors were using the assignments and activity feature within Canvas, in one click, students could export all of that for the entire semester into whatever calendar they choose. So on their iPad, across their entire calendar app, and they can set notifications. So you have a test the next day. You may have forgotten. Your iPad can tell you that you have a test the next day. We need to get there. So that's one of the areas of focus that we're going to work with faculty on, getting to that higher percentage of use of Canvas in year 1. Year 2, we're going to focus really heavily on teaching as well. How can we get iPads in the hands of teachers or faculty? That's been a lot of the questions we've received from the OSU community. We're working through that. We are not giving them to all faculty across the board on day 1, but we will have grant projects. We'll have special projects that we will work on with them, similar to the way we've structured OD grants and impact grants over the years, and trying to scale that up, potentially through departments or specific courses. We're working on the logistics of all of that. But we do believe that once you get that foundational level, say we have like 90% uses of Canvas across our courses, that's where innovation is going to happen. Because those 20% of innovators that are happening right now in our faculty, they're flying on Canvas. They're years past the basic level, and that's where the ideas happen. If we can raise the bar and get more people to there, that's where the flood of ideas, because we have a really great set of e-learning tools already. It's just getting them access and making them understand that. Year 3 and beyond, and really initially as well, affordability is going to be a big push. We had a lunch and learn already about affordability. You probably understand that's a huge mission for us, to make college more affordable in general for students. A lot of our work in that sector right now is around textbook affordability, either open education resources, which are no cost, to low cost textbooks. I firmly believe that providing this iPad to students will open the floodgates there. Because again, it's a consistent framework. Every faculty member knows across all of our campuses that the student has an iPad, which is an insane ebook reader just by itself. Not that it doesn't do 10 million other things, but right there it is. So if you want to distribute any kind of coursework, there's no question, are they going to be reading this on their phone? What do they have? Things like that. You know they all have an iPad Pro that has it right there. So I'm really excited about that cost savings. And then year 4, really this personalized learning concept. And I think there's some sort of synergy with the Workday project through the SIS development there that I'm really excited about, that 4-year planning cycle that could be within the SIS. That's how we could really get to personalized learning, because right now, all of our students are writing their program degrees on pieces of paper, and they're scattered. So if I'm arts and sciences, our largest college here at the university, I have no capability right now of systematically running, when do students need to take chemistry? When am I going to have a heavy load of economics students coming through? So I have to create more sections of economics. That's not there. We can get there, though, through technology. So that's really exciting, and I think this initiative will help. A little specific on the milestones and, again, timeline. We are going to run a pilot this spring with about 5 classes across 2 campuses, Columbus and one of the regional campuses. We are targeting some courses that primarily have first-year students, because next fall we know it's only first-year students getting the iPads. So we've targeted English 1110, which is first-year writing, and a skills course within the College of Education through the Dennis Learning Center. And we're going to put iPads in the hands of their faculty and their students to get feedback. We have some technical things that we need to stand up that we haven't used before. We need to test all of those. Even though it's a small user group, we'll have direct access to these students, so we will get direct feedback to help us drive our next steps. Summer at orientation is when we'll provide the initial rollout to our students. Again, we have a lot of system things that we need to work through and test out to make sure we can get there. But when we're talking about Columbus campus, we have approximately 7,500 students a year. We need a scalable approach to this, and right now, orientation at 250 students every 2 days is one of the ways we can get there. A large event with 7,500 students would be very tricky from a technology standpoint. Also, and then when we get to autumn, that's all campuses. So the other thing you may be asking, why are we giving them at orientation? Don't some students not show up then in August? Isn't that a huge risk? It's a minor risk. Less than 2% of our students that come to orientation don't come to Columbus in August. So in Columbus, we're only talking about 150 students that may not show up. And we'll have something in place where we can get those iPads back from them. But our regionals, it's not quite the same. There's more turnover, there's more movement, so we'll wait until about the second week of class potentially for the regionals. But that scale is correct. Approximately 11,000 students every year come through these doors. As far as the coding, we have started some workshops already. We've offered a handful of coding workshops throughout our OD workshop series, some partnerships with Hackathon and Tech Hub as well. We need to scale those sort of physical in-person things starting in the spring to get just more out there. I think this initiative is going to create some momentum there and some interest. So some of those physical, hands-on, face-to-face workshops, we'll be offering a number of those throughout the spring and beyond. The Swift Playgrounds app, when the students get their iPads, it will be direct access to all the students having that app. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to push it to all the iPads, but they will have a self-service portal where they could go and grab it at any time, and we'll educate them on what that means. And then into fiscal year next year, the 19, we will look at, again, what this sort of coding curriculum looks like and a series of courses to get to the certificate level. Because that's complicated, and Rob Griffiths and his team knows this really well. Certificates are a new thing for Ohio State. It goes through curriculum approval. If they're official courses, that takes some approval time. So we just need a little bit more time to get to that point, to scale that, and to get it to where we need it. But we're hopeful that those could be online, on-demand sort of courses for students, because we don't necessarily want to increase their time to degree. That's not the goal. The goal is to provide them with a skill. So they need flexibility in delivery of that to get that skill. So we're really excited about that. And then the Enterprise App Development and Design Lab, we will have a project soon on this app development side. So we need to identify an area of need, get together a team of experts, and then start that first trip and that first build with Apple on what that app or what that system may look like. We want to start that soon, as early as this spring. The design lab, we need to find a home for it, a physical space. That will launch this summer into early fall so that we have a physical space for students to go to for these ideas and for the community to use. That space may move. We're working on where that logistically will be. And then into fall, we want to have another enterprise app development project. We think there's a lot of areas of need and ideas out there. So we need to develop a system to sort of foster those ideas, evaluate them, and have a committee determine where we're going to go with certain things. So this last slide, hopefully you've all had a chance to read the strategic plan. If you haven't, I highly suggest you do. It's pretty great. It was a lot of community involvement in building that. It's really wonderful. We actually hit all of the pillars in one way or another, but these three I think are directly in line with this digital flagship initiative. We've talked a lot about teaching and learning. This is about raising the bar. President Drake is very, very passionate about teaching and learning, and I think this is a monumental step in showing everybody in the world, basically, that Ohio State is committed to that. We are committed to our students, and we're committed to our faculty. Access, affordability, and excellence, this is all it. I mean, this is about access. Every student will have access to this device across all the boards. And I know some of you work at our regional campuses. It's a different demographic than what we have here. We have a more affluent sort of student base here in Columbus that maybe has 10 devices or however many. It's pretty amazing what they bring with them to college. But when you talk to regional faculty, which we do a lot, they're struggling to turn in things in Carmen because of connectivity or because of damaging in their laptops. They don't have the resources that all of our students here do. So this is leveling that playing field immediately for all of those students. And then research and creative expression. One thing I started talking to the College of Ed, once this got out to the wild and we could actually talk about it, this creates an incredible amount of research opportunities for our ed studies students and really beyond. We are now, again, having the largest deployment of technology, student technology in higher ed ever. Those graduate students, those faculty, those tenured faculty can now look at what that means. Look at the implementation of technology across the board, and then how does it do long term, and do some amazing projects around that. And something that both Leave and I are really passionate about is the creative expression outlet of this. The Adobe apps, if you've never seen the Adobe apps on iPad, they're insane. They're incredible apps. Again, there's a HD camera and video camera built into these things. It's unreal the type of things, hackathon type of things that we can do around creativity at Ohio State and really put the power in the hands of our students. I work with President Drake on the course he teaches as well, and every spring. If you didn't know that, President Drake teaches an undergraduate course. It's really amazing to have a institution of higher ed president teach a course to undergraduates every year. It shows his commitment. Those students have had iPads the last 2 years. One thing we did in that course is the assessment side of that course. We unlocked the potential there. Traditionally, it was, okay, read these articles and write a paper. A very traditional setting for higher education. What we pushed for is why not let them creatively express themselves? So we've had students write haikus about their readings for the week. We've had students do artwork about their readings for the week. We've had them create videos, things like that. And I think that really kind of blew his mind a little bit, and it did mine as well, just what they could do. Provide them a little bit of training and help on what some of these apps can do, and then just let them run. It's really, really incredible, the students that we have here, and I think this unlocks that power. So, next steps.
I'm sure you're probably wondering how exactly we're going to do it. So we are right now in the stage of really thinking about how is it that we design and execute on all of these projects. This is not work that we're doing alone. It is critical that we're connecting with members of this community here and with the larger Ohio State community. So we are starting right now pulling together. We've done a whole range of meetings and presentations, and those are ongoing to start talking with leaders across departments and in administrative units across the university. We are starting next week with a set of deep dives along a collection of what we are calling the vertical lines of work under this project. We started out, I think we generated about initially 12 verticals, realized that that was a little unwieldy, so tried to kind of consolidate those into some lines that we felt like we could align and move forward together. So those verticals right now are, we have a group meeting around policy and security, around deployment and support, around learning and coding, and that's faculty, student, and staff-focused learning, around the enterprise app development project, and around spaces and the design lab. So we are right now, we have reached out to leadership right now within enterprise security, OCIO, and ODEE to identify who from those teams should be in these initial conversations. And these are first go-around kind of brainstorming generative conversations. Once we have kind of pulled the information and ideas and directions that come out of those meetings, we will quickly be developing a similar set of meetings with the university community partners. So starting to draw in from our partners from the University Institute for Teaching and Learning, from UCAT, from the libraries, from the Dennis Learning Center, from the colleges, athletics. So really looking at how we now engage the larger community and envisioning how do we design this in a way that is kind of most effectively delivers on these goals. Those are kind of the next immediate steps that we have. We have a handful of positions that we'll be posting. There is a lot of kind of reallocation and refocusing of people across our team. So we do not have funding to cover all of the work that needs to be done here. We are working hard within our teams on the learning technology side to kind of refocus and reshift and align projects that can help support this work with the existing staff lines that we have. And I want to really just say that I think we expect this and are excited to have this set up in a way that is really designed to be something that we create and build together. So we are not coming with a full set of blueprints ready to go. This is kind of a place where we invite you to bring your creativity and your questions and your pioneering spirit. That's what we're really looking for across the university, to come together and put our heads together around how we design something that's really beyond, I think, what has been envisioned or delivered in a higher ed context before. So we're very excited to do that. Anything you want to add? Okay. Great, so I'm sure you have questions. We'll move to that now. Yes?
Autumn 18, the expectation is still the rollout will only be first-year students or
Okay, so the question is autumn 18, is that rollout just to first-year students? It is just to incoming first-year students on Columbus and regional campuses, and that will then ramp up with each incoming year after autumn of 18.
And I think through the policy development at the university level, transfer students are a big part of our population, so we need to determine what that is. We have some students that transfer outside of the university, so all those logistic parts, because of how big we are, we have pockets of different types of students.
if you want to create a non-disjointed experience, and in your first autumn 18, you will have folks in GE courses who will, of course, have a mix of students from across the spectrum of which year they are in. So this will not necessarily address that. So
correct. So that's exactly right. Any gen ed course could have a senior in it. It could have a freshman. It could have a wide variety of different types of students. I think one creative approach that we could take is identify iPad sections of courses. So Chemistry 1210 is a very large enrollment course at Ohio State, about 6,000 to 6,500 enrollments every year just at the Columbus campus. Could we work with the registrar and work with that department on creating sort of iPad sections? So if you are a first year student and you have an iPad, we know you have one, you can enroll for that section. But also we know that probably 30% of our students here at Columbus have an iPad, just statistically looking at the penetration of iPads in general. They could enroll in that course too. That's something we have to work through. Again, policy side, working with the registrar and all that.
That opportunity also gives us, we have started Shauna Jaggers and her team in the student success area of learning technology are looking at how we start. What they've done so far is a lit review, an initial lit review around research on kind of evidence-based practice around mobile technology in higher ed. They're looking a little bit at upper level K-12 as well. And so they are diving deeper into the existing literature, but we know that there is not a lot of literature around the learning outcomes for students based on mobile technology use. So what Corey described would also be an opportunity to parallel course sections with students who are and are not using technology and potentially identify some interesting opportunities there. We are definitely looking at some other courses that are first year only to see what we can do in rolling out and really supporting faculty on the pedagogical transformation side of a course so that they are thinking about and experimenting with ways to leverage that technology to support learning. Yeah.
Since they are, I'm assuming, OSU devices, who owns the intellectual property when students create code, an app that they might want to monetize, any other artifacts that may be done through Adobe products, etc. And especially in the design labs, that if you're bringing in outside people, regular people from Ohio, if they design a code, who owns that intellectual property?
So I think it's a great question. We'll follow the intellectual property guidelines that we have in place. We won't create new intellectual property guidelines. So we have an intellectual property policy. That policy is out for review currently, and it addresses a lot of much more modern IP problems than the old policy does. So I don't want to say what that policy is going to be because it's out for review, but we will use that policy going forward. So there won't be anything different with this program than any other intellectual property at the university for faculty, staff, and students. Yeah.
For those who have not had an opportunity to see the new intellectual property policy, it was authored. It was re-authored a couple of years ago and went through review, and there were a number of challenges that were identified around kind of these new domains of intellectual property and how we account for faculty who are developing their own work and want to take it with them, and sort of these domains around creative and technology production. So the new policy addresses those and has done, I think, a really good job of trying to answer some of those questions. Jim Fowler was involved pretty closely and helped with some of those rounds of revision. So I think we're going to see a policy. They're taking a pretty extensive feedback right now to land on the final policy.
Is there any intention to introduce alternative resources for those students who come in from disadvantaged backgrounds and don't have that same baseline of digital literacy that, say, a fluent Columbus student would have?
Sure, that's a great question. And I think we recognize that while students who enroll in college today have grown up with technology, that doesn't actually mean that students really from any background have a full set of experiences around how to use that technology really well for learning, and how to manage the distractions and challenges that come kind of packaged into a device, and also to be prepared to leverage the other kinds of resources around financial support, mental health, digital literacy. So we are actually working right now. We have a team on the student learning side who's just starting to think about what would a set of baseline modules digital modules look like that would address those things. But this is part of the, it's kind of I would say the base of the student program is around how do we provide equal access to everyone, to not assume certain kinds of knowledge or experience, but build from the ground up a set of competencies that will support not just their learning success, but their living success too.
So one of the double-edged sword features of technology is that it's constantly changing. While I'm sure an iPad Pro would last the first year of incoming freshmen for that year, at least you could be reasonably sure. Say VR takes off in 2 years and you want to start introducing that, or just some other change in aspect. What is or do you have any plans built into this initiative for that?
Yeah, so our I don't want to get too much into our agreement with Apple, but it's flexible. So it's not locked into an iPad Pro with a pencil and a keyboard and a case and a Apple Care for the next that's what we're getting for the next 4 years. While it'll be that platform, it will most likely be whatever the most innovative solution that is that they're putting out in front.
Yeah,
Cool.
so, well, thank
Awesome.
you so much. If you go to go.osu.edu/digital flagship, that is our current web page. We'll be developing that resource and other resources on there over time. Also, we have an email set up as well, digitalflagship@osu.edu. I'm Tressler.8, so if you have other questions, please reach out, and know that we're going to engage all of you because we need all of your help, because this is huge and we're really, really excited to get to work.
Thanks.